James, just to kind of put the spotlight on you and really understand where this mission come from and what this documentary is about, I think we should go timeline, geography. I think we should start where your true calling came from, where your true passion is, and the best place to start is Africa. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So if you can just speak about Africa and why you think it's so important and the position it holds.
Okay. Well, the importance was I got that drummed into me from a child, from my father, constantly talked about Africa every day. They went one day, Africa weren't mentioned. So another thing as well is looking at some of the pictures, what he used to have, the kings of Mali, looking at African statues, looking at ancient Egyptians statues and depicted as black people. Also notes and things. He always told me about the power of our spirit and stuff like that. And when I'm learning African history, and you got to synchronize it. So this is where the spirituality is. It's connecting, and it's not just connecting. You know, we connect to our peoples wherever we go around the world because we're dealing with original peoples. But Africa, the birthplace of humanity, and from a child, my mum bought me a map, globes and maps. So that was like the visualness of like just the idea, because you form ideas just looking at maps. So when I was always spinning the globe and I pictured myself going to Africa, this place, and anywhere around the world. So then as I started getting older, also my father was a seaman, so we travelled the world as well. My grandfather was a seaman also, come from Nigeria. So there was always, everything around me was black or African. And we've got to make the distinction of when we say black history and African history. I always have to bring this up because sometimes people run with black history like it's only 400 years. But African history is beyond. We don't even know how far we go back. You know what I'm saying? Like some people believe African civilization's only a couple of 1,000 years old. But you go places like deep into Congo and then you start finding the Shango bones, oldest mathematical tool, 25,000 years ago. We're the oldest population on the planet. So what it was about learning about Africa, researching. But then, you got to visit Africa. So when it comes to visiting Africa, how it starts with me is the first place I went to, because I worked my way into Africa. There's a difference. I didn't get taken there by my family. So I took myself there. Morocco I started with, because this is going back to 2010. And I just wanted to get in this African continent. I didn't know. I knew it was like Morocco was a little different, but the first place, I'm in the African continent. Then I needed to go a bit further. I went to Gambia. So when I went to Gambia, that was amazing. I mean, anyone who goes to Gambia has always complimented Gambia. And when you land there, the first thing they're saying to you is, welcome home, brother. That was a warm feeling of welcome home. This is my first time in sub-Saharan Africa. So I've had to deal with the stereotypes of what people said, and you better get your vaccinations. You better be careful. Everyone's poor there. They might rob you. All the negative things that come with this. So I decided, go myself there, and I had the greatest time there. It's greatest hospitality I've came across, and I've been in a lot of places around the world. So Africa, later on, then I decided to go more places in Africa, like Kenya, to go and see the Maasai tribes and do a safari out there, meeting the Maasai people, spiritual people. Interesting history that the Maasai have, Nilo-Saharan they are considered. Later then you get Bantu people going into Kenya, and I speak about Bantus all the time, all over Africa. So Zanzibar, went to Madagascar, Cape Verde, also a place that people don't really look at as Africa, Mauritius. We can go back to Mauritius, the Moors, you know what I'm saying? So we can go deep into that. So it was about traveling around Africa, getting the African experience, feeling the African spirit, and connecting with the African people who are our people anywhere, wherever we go on this planet, brother. You know what I'm saying?
So would you say that Africa is the homeland of the original peoples of the earth, or would you? And if so, has that stayed intact?
Okay, definitely the original people of this planet. There's too many references to why Africa's the first. I feel even religion touches on it a bit. A little bit, like, and then science touches on it, definitely. Then also oral history touches on it, because we can't ignore oral history. You know, we like to look at documented history, writing. It's not just about writing. I mean, like, some people just pass down history knowing that we'll never forget it, because you could write on a wall, what happens if an earthquake happens, or what happens if a flood happens, or so oral history, it has to be intact. Plus, as well, you don't have to walk around with a book or manual to say, well, I've got to do this today or something. You know, it's already embedded in your language, in your family, and your roots. So it's already there. Now, when we're dealing with other parts of the world, you know, like just like I've visited and witnessed, you know, primary research doing, visiting other people around the planet. But obviously, we're on the topic of Africa at the moment. So you can clearly see the ways of Africans that have spread. African spirituality, later on people would use it as religion, because some people was not good at memorizing. You know, we were great at memory, because to have great memory has to be passed down and passed down, where this is just, you don't know no better. And that is how you pass history down without losing tact. But back to what you said before about, is it still original peoples? You go across North Africa, like I say, I went to Morocco, and we know about other parts of North Africa, Arabized, yeah. Now, Arabs, yeah, you know, a lot of people are afraid to speak on Arabs. There's a difference, right? So how you got to deal with this, you have to separate Islam from Arabism. These are two different things, and I have to be clear about that, because some people think you are attacking their religion. There's a different Arabism, just like we have white supremacy. It's no different. It's like David Preston's for many, many years. And I know Arabia once, you know, it's a part of Africa geographically. The original Arabs were black, as we know. But unfortunately, down the line, through mixing with Romans, Turks, and many different peoples and that, it's changed the face of the Middle East. And it's changed the face of North Africa from invasions. And not just only Arabs. Look at the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the Hyksos, the Turks, the Sea Peoples. You can go on forever, all these different invasions. At the time we had problems with the Hittites. You know, Egypt has been getting attacked for thousands and thousands of years. You know, you don't have to sail to Egypt. You can go by land, cut through where Israel is and that. So look at the contributions of what Africans did around the planet. You know, nothing can compare with that. You know, Africans, definitely the source, definitely the place of original people and original knowledge, original teachings, and as we say, melanated peoples.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
In terms of the original tribes, could you highlight some tribes which are the most original, and also their position in their countries at the moment?
So I'd say, always going back to the majority of people, Bantu peoples, the majority. I find the Bantu had the matriarchal system. Now the Nilo-Saharan, who are the Maasai tribes, theirs might be my closer to patrilineal. Now, it doesn't mean every country in Africa doesn't have to be matriarchal, but this is the way of the Bantu peoples, how we see it, and we spread and became the majority of most of Africa. But the patrilineal reason for that is when it's needed. Matriarchal when it's needed. So we gotta go. The man have gotta go to war. We gotta figure a little patrilineal. That's the way it is, because we understood these negative energy, this positive energy. You know, different types of energies, and when necessary, we've got to tap into that energy. When necessary, we've got to tap into this. So depending on what we're dealing with, but if we're dealing with a beginning, it's always been spoken of highly of the black woman. A lot of them used to say the black woman is the god, you know. Then you will have the Maasai tribe say Engai, their god, or Enkai. You know, they have two different gods, but at the same time, they see them as a man. Nothing wrong with that, because I think how it is to make up the whole of Africa on what we we need man and woman, both. You know, from what we know, you see the ankh that represents man, woman, and child. Now, the ankh you see in Egypt, but people don't talk about the ankh was symbolized in South Africa as well. So we know that the ankh is not from Egypt originally. So that represents man, woman, and child equals life, the key of life. And these principles, you can go around the world, you might see people have their own symbolic symbols. Africa's symbol is man, woman, and child. You might see a bunch of other symbols, but the main symbol, man, woman, and child, equals life. Wherever you go in the world.
In Africa, at the moment now, the man, woman, and child, where would you say that's more dominant culture? Like, where would you say that's like the dominant accepted spiritual theory? Where would you say that's most?
Now, when we bring spirituality into it, because religions entered Africa. So with the religion side now, you see, when you do research, and sometimes I used to just look and think, well, how many percentage of, I could be on about Nigeria, practice their ancient African spiritual system? Tiny minorities, but remember, these are censorships. You can't just trust when they say only 5% practice it. I don't trust them censors, that I've found this when I've travelled places and he said there's no indigenous peoples there, and I've found indigenous peoples. So it's always that extra bit of research. Now, the balance now, it's a little disturbed, of course. I wouldn't say it's as disturbed as how black people are living here or in America or maybe parts of the Caribbean. I'd say you go more into a village. The village, everything's intact. Okay, even if religion is being imposed, it doesn't interfere with the spirituality, because it's like the African spiritual system. So, say Christianity is imposed in a part of Africa, they take it on, but sometimes what they might do is you still have your African culture. You don't let your culture go, but you've decided to take on this faith for various reasons. We know all the different reasons. So I'd say, like, Africa has never needed religion. It's spirituality, like we said before, the sacred feminism. Let's speak on spirituality as in sacred science rather than just speak on it like a trend, because there's a lot of fake spirituality, like we were saying, and we spoke about this many times. It's becoming a trend than a reality. I only deal with reality, do you know what I'm saying? And, like, it's important that we get back to ourselves. The only way we can get back, I say Pan-Africanism a lot. That's one aspect, but there's many different sects of Pan-Africanism sometimes. So we've got to be clear exactly which direction we're talking about. And we have to connect back to Mother Earth. And it's not that complicated, some people use like different words. I just say Mother Earth, the mother continent, not just the mother continent, the universe. We've got to be connected back to the universe. And we've lost our connection through wars, invasions, and many different reasons why we don't have our superior power. Our pineal gland at one time, we used our minds totally different. We could use more parts of our brain. We only use so much % of our brain now. That's not us. Something has interfered to make us really decline. And like you mentioned many times before, health is a massive part of that. You are what you eat. This is why, like, living African history is so important. This is why I've studied a lot of African history. But where I need to work on a lot more is my own personal health. And this is very important. I find, like, when I travel certain places, and I love exploring different foods and that. Not compete with African food. Oh, there's herbs, there's spices, and you're in the weather, melanated peoples. Everything is perfect, fresh water. But they always do things like try to contaminate the waters. Many places and that. So it's about independence, and we can only do stuff independently. We cannot do stuff through a third party. Otherwise, we'll be going backwards. That's how I see it. Yeah, definitely.
So in terms of that African culture and that true culture of that oneness and Mother Earth and man, woman and child, if you was to say a different part of the world now, where has that passed down, or where is that spread out to? And are they original peoples, or are they different and they've learned from Africans, or is it been Africans spreading out, and how's that worked?
Interesting question, because when we're dealing with the first humanity coming out of Africa, spread around Africa, and I won't even give a date because, well, they say 200,000 years Ethiopia, then later they found fossils in Morocco, 300,000 years. But I don't play with the dates. Like I say, we could be millions and millions and millions. I don't even want to give a date because... So, people, when they spread around Africa, after that, they're going to move around the planet. So, Asia, they're going to take a coastal migration. You've got the Red Sea, which, if you go back 100,000 years ago, the Red Sea was very much more closer. People actually got to the other side on tree trunks. That was one way out. You got across, you know, we didn't have, well, before they had the technology of boats. So they worked their way into Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, they're going to go around, because this is a coastal migration, because one thing about these first Africans that left, they seem more clever than the rest of them. When I say clever, the ones who stayed on the coast, that showed me their mentality. Also, they wanted to stay. It was easy to find a way into Asia by staying on the coast. So come through Arabia, the Persian Gulf, going into India, China, Japan, Southeast, you know, all these areas. And then you got a wave that goes into ancient America. This was, because you got different haplogroup A, B, C, D, and all these ones. So the first wave, they would have crossed the Bering Land Bridge, which is, you know, where Alaska is, and that. One time it was green, and you could cross over there before all this ice. So Africans first got there. You'll see traces like Lucia in Brazil. That she's one of them. Then later on, you're going to get Mongoloid waves going to ancient America way, way later. But we had many, many waves of black people going to America anyway. Starting with the oldest would be documented, Lucia in Brazil. Many times mentioned that. Also, you've got in the Virgin Islands, 1250 AD, you found skeletal remains of Africans, two Africans, and they had clay vessels around the wrist. The Virgin Islands, that was. Phoenicians going there, like Carthaginian money that was found in Ecuador, Peru, buried under the ground. Also, Polynesians, Pacific Islanders, Melanesians, they would have got there. Easter Islands is only not that far away from South America. Plus, you got the Polynesian DNA in some parts of people in the Amazon. You got the Austro-Melanesian type, which is like, they said Lucia, they believe she was an Austro-Melanesian type. Probably sailed by boat, most likely. Seafarers, and this connection of Africa influencing the world. So when we deal with, like, say, and obviously the Olmecs I forgot to mention before, Mexico. So let's look at Asia, because I believe Asia would have been one of Africa's first places which they went to. So, like I said, we left Africa a long time ago, could be 90,000 or 100,000 years. Later, we're going to bring the seeds of civilization after that. So this is going to be other waves now coming from Africa. This wave is going to introduce the planet to, I wouldn't just say spirituality, because I believe when we first left Africa, we took it with us. I believe we've always been spiritual. I don't believe our spirituality only came a couple of thousand years ago, just like religion only came then. So definitely we took our African spirituality, and I can see when I meet the Australian Aborigines, I'm studying these people, and I can see you still got that connection with the motherland. So then anyway, you're going to get a later, they say dealing with African, say 10,000 years ago, I want to deal with round about these times. About 10,000 years ago, I'd say, there's evidence of Africans going into places like India. Now, there's different type of Africans, you see, because not all Africans are all the same. East Africans, yeah, from Ethiopia, they would have entered through the monsoon winds going to India. 6 months blows to India, 6 months blows to Africa. So they would have, like, you know, spent some time in India. This is even before the Indus Valley civilization, because there was evidence of trade with Africa. Africans in China, 3,500 BC. So they were raising silkworms. You know, there was a lot of, like, trade purposes. They were there. Also in India. Now, the people called Dravidians, there's these people called Dravidians in India. And I remember that I was asking the Grandmaster, Ranoka Rashidi, when did the Dravidians come to India? So the Dravidians weren't direct descendants that first went into India, because we have to deal with different waves that went into India. So dealing with the first wave, you see people like in the Andaman Islands, the short dominions of black people, where we find them everywhere in rainforests. Those are the first that entered India. Second wave, which might only came in the last 10,000 years after that, these describe them coming from the Mediterranean area. Now, when we say Mediterranean, what is the Mediterranean? Can that only be Italy, Spain, Portugal? Can it be Egypt's on the Mediterranean? North Africa is on the Mediterranean. So when we deal with it, that's why we have to go to the great scholars, like people like Clyde Winters now. Dr. Clyde Winters, he's actually one of the men who he actually inspired the Grandmaster Ranoko Rashidi, believe it or not. So Clyde Winters was one of the earliest on all this stuff. And he's describing, Clyde Winters, that all these linguistics that tie Africa and Asia together, linguistically, religiously, spiritually, everything you'll see that connects us. So later on now, these Dravidians now, he believes that the Dravidians were in the middle of Africa before the Sahara Desert was a desert. Then when it started drying up, they started moving towards Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and became the Elamites of Persia, which is Iran. They became the Sumerians of Sumer, and also the Indus Valley civilization. So this kind of reset, Europeans don't touch on this too much. They don't deal with it too much, because the Sahara Desert, before, when that was green, lush, I guarantee you there would have been more civilizations in Africa. That would make a decline. That would decline civilization. People would have to move toward Nigeria or towards Egypt and leaving Africa. So these black people in Asia who have witnessed them myself. Let me start off with Sri Lanka and we move in. Sri Lanka, I went to meet the Veda people. That was a great experience, Sri Lanka. I just took myself there, got picked up by a person who I hardly knew. I just knew talked to a shopkeeper one time, and then he said there's brothers out there, and I'm one of them type of people. I'm quite fast at making connections. I'm going to Asia soon. So we like being with his brother, staying like in a village, rural, Kuranagala. And I said, I want you to take me a place called Dambana. And Dambana is where the Veda people are. Now the Vedas now, if I look at the Veda people, they're a bit similar to the Aboriginal Australians. Very similar. Like, majority of them have curly to straight hair. Majority. But you will see some with afros, though. And they're even older traces. They're the ones I'm looking for the most, don't they, the afros. Found about 2 of them. But maybe you've got to go deeper into there in the rainforest. So the Vedas now, they're very interesting then, because there was a time when Indians went to Australia about 4,000 years ago. Their DNA is in some Aboriginal Australians 4,000 years ago. Now, Dr. Clyde Winters, when he speaks on it, he said they were Dravidians that went to Australia. So a European speaking on, they're aware of this migration from India to Australia 4,000 years ago. They don't use the word Dravidians, they just say India. So what it makes you do is it lumps everyone in one category when you just say Indian people went there. When you say Dravidian, you are talking about specific Indians. When you talk about people like the Jarawa people in the Andaman Islands, you're talking about different Indians. Because one thing about India, what I learned, I was studying a lot of people's DNA there. I was on research on the internet, and I was looking at many different Indians and Sri Lankans. And you know what? A majority of them came up as, they're not one rarely anyone come up 100% Indian. I seen things like Mediterranean DNA there, so that would match it when the Dravidians came in there. I also seen South Asian, so that would be the oldest ones that'd be the black people. I also seen Southeast Asian DNA, because some people from Southeast Asia would have went there, trade back and forth. Also Pacific Islander DNA. When I seen Pacific Islander DNA, Polynesian and Melanesian DNA. So it's showing you that this link, what's been going back and forth for years, where if you look at people in the Solomon Islands, or Australia, not every Australian Aborigine has very tight hair. Good few of them have curly hair. straighter, some have afros. So to have all these different looks, this is would have been like original people, black peoples. Later on, you're going to get new waves coming in, new waves. Then, so moving into like, say, Southeast Asia, these were the hidden people that I came across. Are most amazing. It's just like, it's so unreal. You'd have to experience it. I mean, I was so excited. Philippines, the Eta, small, diminutive black people, live so spiritual in harmony with nature. They've had to move over the years due to, you know, they have, what do you call it, typhoons and stuff out there and that. Very spiritual people. They all believe in a supreme being. Now, you might see other Eta groups who, I was looking at the God concept of it, you see, and you've got the Eta, but you've got the Eta. Same people. There's nothing different about them. There might just be little differences where one might say, we believe in a supreme being. The other one say, well, there's a evil force, like good spirits, bad spirits, ruling over the air. So I'm more with the supreme being, because when it comes to tracing things, I don't do things like how a European do. Europeans looking for divide already. His mind's already looking on divide, where my mind, when I'm going, is uniting. When you want divide, what divide does, yeah, it opens up your research more and more harder. You don't need to, you have to be, because if you want to deal with modern day basis, then keep it to modern day. What you're finding now, hundreds of tribes, thousands of tribes. But if you want to talk ancient times, there wasn't thousands of tribes in Nigeria or certain other places. You know, people form their own tribes as they do. So we've got to be honest about it. So when I see like the Orange Asley tribe, and this is original people, original peoples, and this told me like, well, I went to see them in Malaysia, walked on the longest canopy in the world, and they have tigers there, they have snakes there. I watch them using the blowpipe and stuff like that. They also bury the dead in the trees and leave them there for so long. No tigers or nothing will go for them, you know, because they preserve, they do something with the body. Very spiritual people. One of the most spiritual people I've came across, Orange Asley. And
just this kind of like finish up now.
And the Mani, allow me to say one thing I want to make. The Mani tribe, why they're important in Thailand, there's only 300 people left. And they're on the verge of extinction. I think that I'd hate to say it, but I think they're going to be the first ones to become extinct. And it hurts me to say that unless something's done about it. You know, seriously, man, this is the decline in numbers big.
So what is the solution? How do we protect the original peoples?
Interesting question, that, and the reason why it's interesting, yeah. There's people who've asked me the similar question, what you've asked, but where they were coming from, they were into things like campaigning, doing a lot of stuff what I'm not used to doing, and by linking with other groups, you've got to know these groups, because they might not have their best interest for these people, even though I know I do, or you would. But when you just link up with a group, or where you don't know who these people are. So that's why I'm very wary of involving certain people. So what I've been really trying to do everything independently, do you know what I mean? Like, independence is the word for me, you know, and for yourself, it's self-taught, self-knowledge, and go out there and get that raw knowledge and that. But something has to happen, because I remember them also saying to me, yeah, having a good talk with him, and he was sitting around the fires and that, and he was saying like, we're declining in numbers. And what they do to this day, they look around on who are the oppressors today. So when they look around in the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, they're going to look at the people there. They won't realize that the Europeans went there, like the Spanish, they were calling them negritos in the Philippines. And so back then, when you call someone negrito, you're calling us the N-word too. You're saying the word black, but then you call the Aboriginal Australians black fellas. Do you get what I'm saying? So we've all took on this word. The same way, the connection with the Pacific Islands. Let's not forget about the Pacific Islanders. Hawaiians have their great stories. I've met a lot of spiritual people in Hawaii. Hope to go back to Hawaii. There's little parts of Hawaii that's it's a no-go zone for some tourists and other visitors. You know, they want to protect the land and that. But one thing I can say about Hawaii, they have some great stories about the black dwarfs that were there before them. So that made me think about these small black folks were everywhere. Also, there's a story where the Hawaiians spoke highly of Africa. They said they used to call Africa the land of the gods or the land of the spirits. They also talk about there was a 7-foot Hawaiian commandman going back when the times of the Europeans were trying to conquer Hawaii. And they claimed that they sent back to Africa for reinforcement, which was an old Hawaiian tradition. I thought that was amazing. And another place, Tonga, Fiji, and Micronesia. Tonga, some of the amazing megalithic sites. Going to see Stonehenge. And when we say Stonehenge, that's what it's translated. It's called Maui, the name like that. So they took me to the 3-step pyramid, the burial. Now, when I looked at the Stonehenge, they said that the kings and the chiefs kneeled in there because they felt that it's good luck and that will protect you from assassination attempts that could later come in your life. So I'm standing in there. You know what I'm saying, brother? So you need the good luck we can get.
Yeah.
Then you're moving on to, the Fijians. I've mentioned this many times. Fiji is the best place in that area, Melanesia, which the memory of we came from Africa, and they give a date. Now, Papua New Guinea, yeah, they might talk about we came from Africa, but they'll say 40,000 years ago. Fiji is dealing with a recent migration. And the Fijian people, Fijian women, let's deal with the Fijian women, all have afros. And this is considered beauty out there. A lot of the men as well, they've obviously, because of their own good ways and their proudness, that's why the women can just walk around with afros. Because if the men wear, what is it called? Like some people, we might get our peoples here and they want the woman to straighten the hair. And that does happen. You know what I'm saying? So out there, the men told the women, this is beauty. So they all rock afros. You know what I'm saying? So the Fijian people, that is definitely a place. Been there twice as well. So I spent some time around different peoples there. Met a wise man called Kelly who took me to meet the High Chief. Twice, both visits, I met the High Chief sitting there drinking kava. He sat me down for like 1 hour, asking me about African history, speaking on all kinds, and just even stuff I wouldn't even mention on podcasts what they haven't before, because some things he said is secret, and I'd only speak to certain people about them things. You know what I'm saying?
Just to kind of finish up now, because obviously we ran out of time, and I think it's powerful information, but definitely gonna it's got a lot more to put in the documentary. But obviously time has to come in it, so but yeah, no, the wealth of knowledge, I'm excited for this documentary, and hopefully we can get more information.
And one last thing, South America, underrated place for black people as well. Venezuela, interesting place when I was there. Venezuela, Amazon rainforest, you got there, and that. Brazil I went to as well. That was an amazing place. And also my first journey was Cuba. When I say my first journey on the mission, 2006. So all these places, just Dominican Republic. The worst place in Asia, I didn't like Hong Kong. Didn't like it. I felt it was so racist. It's blatantly, they're trying to be English, and I just didn't like it. I wouldn't ever go back there. But one thing I did see, a lot of dark-skinned people. What they say to dark-skinned people, you worked in the fields while you're dark. So Asians have their racism as well.
Yeah.
And you can go back to the caste system in ancient India.
Yeah. So definitely there's so much to unpack there. So definitely gonna.
And one last place that I must mention, Mexico.
Yeah.
My reason was 2012 when I went there, when he said it's the end. The Mexicans have said it's a new beginning.
Okay.
That's just a new beginning. The end of the old, the new world. Let it in.
This is what we're doing the documentary for. So
original peoples, man.
Thank you, man. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to be on this side and
thank you very much.
Getting the information. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Original Peoples documentary, and hopefully out soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate.
Yeah, man.